Welcome to GA05 Part 2. In this short video we will quickly review display records, edit records, delete records, and delete a table. This will complement, create, connect, and add records from GA05 Part 1. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at display records. In the last video we added a bunch of records, so let's look at how to display them. To display the records, we need to make a connection to the database, just like we did with when adding the records. It's our connection is right here. Our SQL string is fairly simple. It is just a select star. The star is a wildcard from and then the name of our table. So this means select all records or rows from our table. To execute a query, we use the error suppression operator, because we're going to have our own exception or error handling here. To our MySQL I query, we provide two arguments. The first is our connection that we created right here, and the second is a string that is a valid SQL statement. So I've got a connection and a string, and those are executed with the @MySQL I _ query. If that runs successfully, we will have returned to us the result of our query. Our query doesn't really do us any good until we can look at it, and to do that we will fetch the rows one by one. There's a couple ways to do this. The preferred way to do it when you're first starting out with databases and MySQL and PHP is to use the associative array. This will allow us to use this. It is an array, but you can see that the instead of having indexes here like 0, 1, 2 for the columns, we actually have the column names. There is also a MySQL I fetch that has a row, and that for the row, instead of associate ASSOC the columns, you're going to have to number or index the columns rather than name the columns. I think this is a little more straightforward. So this is it. This is the command here. Again, this is on page 439. MySQL I _ fetch _ ASSOC, and as an argument we provide the query result. The query result has to be created before you can call the MySQL I fetch command. We have fetched this into the first row, and we've set up some housekeeping here. I've created a table in my CSS. I defined my table. I created some headers. These are my headers: player name, number, and team. And then you notice my while loop here. I have inside for my check. Remember, repetition control structures have to be initialized with the loop control variable. The loop control variable is going to be this variable called row. Row, if I fetch results from properly, row will have a value of true. So while row, this works out as a Boolean expression here. While what this in essence means is, while there are still records to be looked at, do this. And what I want to do is create a nice row with some TD elements. Notice here this is a opening French brace and row. Now I have now created this associative array and put player name, whatever the player name is of the particular record, that's going to be echoed here. So I will echo player name, player num, and player team. I will also increment I here, and I really don't need to do that. This would be for handling it if it was in, actually if you wanted to keep a count of how many records, then let's go ahead and use I. Otherwise I doesn't really serve a purpose here. I should have deleted that rather than confusing you. Our loop control variable row has to be changed. It has to be changed inside the loop. So notice here we perform the fetch here. We perform the check here, and then we perform the fetch at the bottom of our loop. When we're all done with the loop, we can echo table. This is a good programming concept, page 442. Avoid memory leaks by freeing up memory that you don't need. That's called a memory leak. PHP has a free result that can be run on a query result, and that will free up some memory. Remember, if you open a connection, you need to close it. And let's see how our display records runs. I have display records in my week 9 folder, and I'll just run that, and this is my result. So I have my nicely formatted table here. In this instructional video, I've also created a screen snapshot of the code when I ran this, and then I pasted this in as an image tag. So the formatting is accurate. I think this is probably the best way to display the code for this. As our code gets more complicated, you can actually refer to line numbers and a particular PHP script here, in this case DB display records. If you don't know what's going on with this associative array stuff, you can reference DB display records.php line number 67 in the discussion board, and I'll know what you're talking about. So anyway, we have a nicely formatted table here. Notice we do have duplicate data. That's because I did not assign a primary key. We'll do that in a later lesson. Generally, you do not in a relational database, you do not want duplicate records, because if you modified a record, you could delete a particular record and you wouldn't be deleting all the records. So many reasons for not having duplicate data. This is just an example. When we set primary keys, we'll avoid having duplicate data. Alright, that is display records. Next we will look at editing records. To edit a record in SQL, you use the update. This is the update. Notice our connection string is still the same. Everything is set up the same. We just are changing the SQL string. So to edit the record, we need to use the update. Remember, the SQL reserved words or keywords are in uppercase. That is just a convention. So let's update. We're going to update the table named table players. We only have one table, and it's called TBL players. We're going to set a new value for team is going to be CLE, where player num equals 28. So in this case, Trot Nixon was traded from the Boston Red Sox to the Cleveland Indians, so we have to update his team. So wherever we see player num of 28, which is going to belongs to Trot Nixon, his team will be updated from BOS to CLE. To execute our query, we use the @MySQL_query, again with just the connect and string. Here's our error handling is the same. It's nice to display something to the user to tell the user that you modified this. If something did happen, this would happen. An error would be displayed. And lastly, our database is closed. Let's go ahead and run edit records on our server. This is where we left off. This is how we displayed records. Now let's edit records. So successfully modified table players. We should now go back and display records, right, to see if Trot Nixon's team changed from BOS to CLE. So let's go back to display, and sure enough, Trot Nixon, now he has a CLE. He's all CLE. So the code for that, let's see, if we wanted to edit this we could run edit records again. No harm in doing that. It would just change CLE to CLE. I just wanted to show you the code here, PHP code for that. Okay, a couple more. Let's find out how to delete records and finally delete a table. To delete records, our SQL string is, and these can all be found in Chapter 9, by the way. Chapter 8 gives a good introduction to SQL databases and relational databases in general. And Chapter 9, there is some SQL. You should probably, at this point, start finding a good SQL reference online. If you find a favorite that you like, go ahead and post that on the bulletin boards. Our SQL string to delete is just going to be delete from table name where and then a condition. So here my condition is going to be where player team is equal to, this is an equality operator, is equal to ANA. So let's say Jeff Devannon was traded and or left the league. We need to delete him from our table, and actually here we're going to delete all players who have the player team of ANA. So let's say that the Anaheim Angels no longer are in our league, so we need to delete everyone. So all players that have ANA and player team will be deleted. The query result is exactly the same. My success message to the user is the same as well. Let's go ahead and run delete records. Now let's display our records before. So here's our records. We have some Anaheim players. Let's go ahead and call delete records. And file not found. Maybe I need to push that page out. Yep, it helps to have a file on your server before you run it, before you call it. There we go. Delete records. Here's the code. Very simple SQL statement. Delete from table where field equals value. Yeah, let's take a look at what we did. No more ANAs in our display. The last thing we'll do is say goodbye to everyone here, and we'll delete the table. Probably the simplest of all SQL strings here for the table. It's drop table and table name. Now when we do this, all of our data in this table is going to be gone. So be careful about doing this. Only generally a database administrator would do this. Generally, you don't drop tables. Only in the design of a database would you be dropping. Initial design phase of a database system would you be dropping tables. Nonetheless, this is how you do it. It's not going to be a problem here because we'll just recreate our table and then go ahead and add data again to it and go through the process again. So this time I did post that to the server, and it is db delete table. Successfully deleted table. Now what's going to happen when we go to view table players and there's not a table players to view? What's going to happen? So display records, unable to execute the query, error code, table doesn't exist. See the nice error code we have? And our system didn't crash here. Table players doesn't exist. That's no big deal. We can go back and create that from yesterday's video. We created a table. There we go. Created a table. This was version 0.5 of the source code, but you can see how we created the table. Create table players. now you can go back and add records to that. Run that again to add some more records. Let's display our records. There we go. So you can start the process all over. What I'll do is I'll create some indexes just like your websites, so you can find these pages in GA05. This will complete the video on GA05, and this will be in week 9's video folder.